Imagine knowing your time on Earth is limited. What wisdom would you leave behind? What lessons would you pass on, not just to your family, but to the world? In September 2007, Randy Pausch, a computer science professor at Carnegie Mellon University, delivered what became known as the last lecture. Facing terminal cancer, he didn't speak about death. Instead, he spoke about life, about achieving dreams, overcoming obstacles, and living with integrity, courage, and joy. His lecture touched millions and later became the basis of his best-selling book. Today, we'll journey through the last lecture, uncovering Randy's childhood dreams, adventures, and the powerful life lessons that emerged from them. Randy begins with brutal honesty. He explains his diagnosis, 10 tumors in his liver, just months to live. Yet instead of pity, he chooses purpose. He decides to gift his family and students with a message that will outlive him. Lessons on dreaming, working hard, and appreciating life. This lecture, and later this book, becomes a way for his children to know their father's values and for others to gain wisdom from his journey. Part 1. The Last Lecture. Chapter 1. An Injured Lion Still Wants to Roar. Randy was invited to give a talk in Carnegie Mellon's Journeys lecture series. By then, he already knew his cancer was terminal. His wife, Jai, wanted him to conserve his energy for their family, but Randy saw this lecture differently. He viewed it as a legacy, a chance to give his children a piece of himself they could return to when he was gone. He compared himself to a wounded lion, battered but still eager to roar. This was not going to be a lecture about death. It would be about living with purpose, seizing opportunities, and celebrating dreams. His resolve to deliver the lecture shows how much he believed in teaching through action. He wanted to demonstrate that passion and courage can shine even in the darkest hours. Chapter 2. My Life in a Laptop. Preparing for the lecture became an emotional journey. Randy spent countless hours assembling hundreds of slides, images from his childhood, photos with family, snapshots of his career, and reminders of dreams both realized and lost. Each picture carried a story and a lesson, carefully chosen to illustrate the values he lived by. His laptop became a capsule of his entire life. Every file, every image was not just data, it was memory, meaning, and message. The preparation process was draining, forcing him to confront his mortality, but also gave him clarity about what mattered most. Through this exercise, he curated not just a lecture, but a roadmap of his life's wisdom. Chapter 3. The Elephant in the Room. When the day of the lecture arrived, Randy walked on stage with calm confidence. He immediately addressed the obvious, the elephant in the room. He projected scans of his liver showing tumors, the physical proof of his battle with cancer. The audience fell silent. Randy broke that silence with his defining principle. We cannot change the cards we are dealt, just how we play the hand. He then shocked everyone by dropping to the floor and doing push-ups, proving he was still physically strong despite his illness. In that moment, he shifted the mood from sorrow to inspiration. He showed that his talk would not be about dying, but about living vibrantly, with humor and courage. Part 2. Really Achieving Your Childhood Dreams. Chapter 4. The Parent Lottery. Randy firmly believed he won life's greatest lottery, having his mother and father as parents. His father, a World War II veteran and social worker, devoted his life to helping others. He taught Randy the importance of humility, service, and storytelling. His mother, a strict but deeply caring teacher, instilled discipline, curiosity, and the joy of learning. Together, they created an environment where imagination was encouraged, but responsibility was expected. This unique balance gave Randy the confidence to dream big and the resilience to withstand setbacks. He emphasizes that a child's foundation comes from parents who model values, not just words. Chapter 5. The Elevator in the Ranch House. As a teenager, Randy asked his parents if he could paint his bedroom walls. Instead of saying no, they encouraged him. He covered the walls with mathematical equations, diagrams of rockets, doodles, and even a whimsical elevator door in their one-story home. This freedom shaped his belief that imagination should never be confined. To Randy, That bedroom was a launch pad for creativity. Years later, he would encourage students to break conventional boundaries, and he reminded parents everywhere that sometimes the best gift you can give your child is freedom to dream, even if it means living with messy walls. Chapter 6, Getting to Zero G. Randy's childhood dream of floating in zero gravity seemed impossible due to his poor eyesight, which disqualified him from becoming an astronaut. But when NASA opened opportunities for students to test experiments in zero gravity, he saw a loophole. As faculty, he was not eligible to join the flight. Instead of giving up, he reapplied under the category of journalist. His persistence worked, and he finally experienced the thrill of weightlessness aboard NASA's Vomit Comet. This chapter illustrates his creativity and determination. The lesson: when the front door is closed, persistence and ingenuity often reveal a side door. Chapter 7. I never made it to the NFL. Though Randy never fulfilled his dream of playing in the NFL, the lessons from football were more valuable than the dream itself. He remembered the endless drills, the emphasis on fundamentals, and the demanding coaches. One assistant coach told him, "When you're screwing up and nobody corrects you anymore, it means they've given up on you." That sentence stayed with him forever. Football taught him discipline, humility, teamwork, and perseverance, qualities that later defined his career and personal life. Randy highlights that the best lessons from childhood dreams often come from the journey, not the destination. Chapter 8. You'll find me under V. As a boy, Randy spent hours exploring the World Book Encyclopedia, dreaming that one day he could contribute to it. To most people, this was a quirky, unrealistic ambition. Yet, decades later, as an accomplished researcher in virtual reality, he was invited to write the entry on virtual reality. This dream, small to others but huge to him, finally came true. It taught him the value of persistence and the joy of achieving something that once seemed impossible. The moment symbolized how even unusual childhood dreams can be fulfilled when passion meets expertise. Chapter 9. A skill set called leadership. Randy admired Captain Kirk from Star Trek. Kirk wasn't the most brilliant person on the ship. That role belonged to others like Spock, but he was the leader. He was decisive, visionary, and willing to take responsibility. Randy came to see leadership as a skill set separate from raw intelligence. Leadership meant empowering others, guiding teams, and setting a tone of trust and inspiration. When Randy eventually met William Shatner, he found him curious and humble, qualities that reinforced Randy's view of what true leadership looks like. The chapter's lesson is that leadership is not about being the smartest, but about creating environments where others can excel. Chapter 10. Winning Big. Randy had a whimsical dream of winning giant stuffed animals at carnivals. He practiced relentlessly until he became skilled at the games and won prize after prize. Over the years, he collected an enormous number of stuffed animals, which he proudly displayed. During his last lecture, he gave them away to the audience, sharing the joy rather than keeping it for himself. To him, these prizes symbolize persistence, fun, and the satisfaction of small victories. The deeper message was that joy comes not just from achieving dreams, but from sharing them with others. Chapter 11. The Happiest Place on Earth. Randy's ultimate dream was to work at Disney Imagineering, the creative force behind Disney theme parks. His first attempt ended in rejection, but instead of giving up, he studied Disney's culture and prepared more thoroughly. Eventually, he earned a sabbatical and collaborated with Disney on a cutting-edge virtual reality project. This was the fulfillment of a lifelong dream, but it also reaffirmed one of Randy's central lessons. Brick walls exist not to keep us out, but to test our dedication. They separate those who give up from those who truly want something and are willing to fight for it. Part 3. Adventures and Lessons Learned. Chapter 12. The park is open until 8 p.m. Randy likens life to a theme park. He reminds us that while the park will close at some point, until it does, the rides are open and meant to be enjoyed. This metaphor shaped how he approached his terminal diagnosis. Instead of focusing on the end, He poured his energy into savoring every moment that remained, playing with his children, spending time with Jai, engaging with students, and cherishing simple joys. He knew the end was inevitable, but he believed that joy should not be postponed until tomorrow. His message: life's doors may eventually close, but while they are open, walk through them with gratitude and wonder. Chapter 13, Dutch Uncle. Randy reflects on the role of mentors, specifically Andy Van Dam, one of his professors. Van Dam was direct, sometimes harsh, but always honest. He told Randy when he was being arrogant or when his work wasn't good enough. At first, these critiques stung. But over time, Randy realized that true mentors care enough to give tough love. He calls them Dutch uncles, people who are brutally honest, not to discourage us, but to make us better. He stresses that criticism, when rooted in care, is a gift. Without it, growth stagnates. Randy's success was deeply tied to those who pushed him hardest. Chapter 14. Loyalty is a two-way street. For Randy, loyalty was one of the most important values in his personal and professional life. He recalls times when colleagues defended him and students stood by him, and he made sure to return that loyalty whenever possible. When one of his students was in a difficult situation, Randy fought to protect them. When colleagues supported him, he made sacrifices for them in return. His belief was simple: loyalty is earned through actions, not words, and it must flow in both directions. True loyalty strengthens relationships and sustains communities, especially during adversity. Chapter 15. Earnest is better than hip. Randy admits he was never the cool guy in the room, but he argues that being earnest, sincere, hardworking, passionate is far more enduring than being trendy or hip. Coolness fades with time, but authenticity leaves a lasting impact. He shares that some of his most successful students and colleagues weren't those chasing trends, but those who poured themselves earnestly into their work. His advice is to resist the temptation of short-term image and focus instead on long-term character. Chapter 16, Don't complain, just work harder. This lesson became a guiding principle in Randy's own life. He recalls stories of people who faced immense challenges, disabilities, hardships, setbacks, but refused to waste energy on complaints. Instead, they worked harder with resilience and determination. Randy himself, faced with cancer, embodied this mindset. Rather than bemoan his fate, he chose to spend his limited time productively, building memories, teaching, and writing. Complaining doesn't change reality. Effort and attitude do. Chapter 17. Treat the disease, not the symptom. Randy emphasizes the importance of going to the root of problems, not just addressing surface-level issues. Whether in engineering, medicine, or personal life, solving symptoms without understanding the underlying cause only delays progress. He applies this mindset to his work, encouraging students to think deeply about fundamental problems. In life, he urges us to look beyond the obvious and address the real challenges underneath. Chapter 18, You Just Have to Ask. So many opportunities in Randy's life came because he dared to ask. Whether it was approaching Disney for a chance to collaborate, asking mentors for guidance, or requesting support, he found that doors opened simply because he had the courage to knock. Many people, he argues, miss out because they never ask. The worst that can happen is a no, but without asking, the answer will always be no. Randy's life proves that boldness in asking often leads to extraordinary experiences. Chapter 19, Don't Obsess over what people think. Randy urges readers not to live life according to others' expectations. Approval and judgment from outsiders are fleeting. What matters is living in alignment with your values and priorities. He stresses that if he had worried too much about others' opinions, he would never have pursued virtual reality research, collaborated with Disney, or given his last lecture in the first place. His advice: measure your life by your own compass, not by the fleeting opinions of others. Chapter 20, Start by Sitting Together. Randy highlights the power of proximity in collaboration. He recalls how innovation often emerged when students and colleagues sat together, shared ideas, and brainstorm casually. Simply sitting together fostered trust, camaraderie, and creativity. He believed that human connection was the spark of most great achievements. The lesson: sometimes progress doesn't begin with grand plans, but with the simple act of being together and talking. Chapter 21. An Engineering Dream. Randy reflects on his pride in being an engineer and researcher. For him, engineering was more than solving technical problems. It was about dreaming big and enabling others to do the same. He loved blending creativity with science, using virtual reality to transport people into worlds of imagination. His work wasn't just about technology. It was about inspiring wonder and expanding possibility. He found joy in teaching, guiding students, and watching them take his ideas further than he ever could. Chapter 22. Rethinking the Brick Walls. Randy returns to one of the central metaphors of his lecture: brick walls. He reminds us that obstacles are not there to stop us, but to test our determination. Brick walls separate those who only say they want something from those who truly mean it. Throughout his life, from pursuing zero gravity to working with Disney to facing cancer, brick walls appeared. But he chose to see them as opportunities to prove his dedication. For him, overcoming obstacles was less about victory and more about demonstrating persistence, resilience, and heart. Part 4. Enabling the Dreams of Others. Chapter 23. Jai. Randy devotes this chapter to his wife, Jai. He recalls their first meeting at the University of North Carolina, where she was a graduate student. At first, their relationship was rocky. Jai valued her independence, and Randy was deeply immersed in his work. But over time, they fell in love and built a life together. Randy emphasizes how Jai gave him grounding and balance. She was the one who reminded him that family comes before professional ambition. During his illness, she showed extraordinary strength, juggling motherhood, caregiving, and her own grief. Randy acknowledges that while his lecture is a legacy for his children, Jai is the person who makes their world steady. His message is clear. Choosing the right partner is one of the most important decisions anyone can make, because that relationship shapes every other aspect of life. Chapter 24. Dream Big. Randy highlights his pride in enabling his students to dream big and accomplish goals that once seemed impossible. He recalls building the virtual reality lab at Carnegie Mellon, a place where imagination was encouraged and failure was treated as a stepping stone rather than an end. He designed programs like the Building Virtual Worlds class, where students were challenged to create immersive projects in just 2 weeks. The results consistently exceeded his expectations. Randy delighted in watching students surprise themselves with what they could achieve. For him, teaching wasn't about transferring knowledge. It was about unlocking creativity and showing others what they were capable of. By enabling others' dreams, Randy felt he was creating a ripple effect. His influence would continue long after he was gone through the people he inspired. Part 5. It's about how to live your life. Chapter 25. It's about how to live your life. Randy brings all his lessons together here. He explains that while his lecture appeared to be about achieving childhood dreams, the real message was deeper: how to live life itself. He argues that when you live with honesty, gratitude, and determination, dreams often take care of themselves. He points to key values: hard work, humility, resilience, and integrity as the cornerstones of a meaningful life. Randy stresses the importance of showing gratitude to mentors and colleagues, being earnest instead of chasing trends, and putting family above career. He reinforces the idea of the head fake, where lessons are disguised as something else. Football wasn't about football, but about discipline. Disney wasn't about a job, but about persistence. His takeaway: live with character, and the dreams will follow naturally. Part 6. Final Remarks. Randy closes with his most powerful reflection. He admits the lecture wasn't truly about his childhood dreams. Instead, it was about how to live so that dreams can come true. The second head fake, he reveals, is that the lecture wasn't really for the audience at all. It was for his 3 children. One day, when they were old enough, they would watch the lecture and read the book, and through it, come to know the values their father cherished. He hoped they would see that life, no matter how short, can be lived with joy, persistence, and love. Randy reminds us all, we cannot change the cards we are dealt, only how we play the hand. His cards were cruel, but he played them with humor, courage, and grace. In doing so, he left behind a timeless legacy of wisdom, one that continues to inspire millions. Randy Pausch's last lecture is not about dying, but about living. It's a reminder that time is limited, but dreams are infinite. Brick walls may stand in our way, but they're only there to test our determination. As Randy said, we cannot change the cards we are dealt, only how we play the hand. His hand was short, but he played it with courage, humor, and grace. And in doing so, he left us lessons that will last far beyond his years.